In today's video I have this little old Astor television complete with some hay or something attached to it. Dust and filth all over it, but it hasn't been used in a long time, but supposedly in working order. And a friend gave me this one for fixing his little radio. Probably could have got it without him fixing his radio, but I thought that'd be a fair swap. Used to belong to their family. These actually came out fairly sort of later in the 60s than you'd think, because they're an all wooden cabinet. I think it's like plywood or something with veneer on it. We'll have a look and see. Quite a nice little unit, gold trim. A couple of vents in the top because it is valve. Antennas are broken on it, which is a shame. Some mesh, aluminium mesh with the little perforations in it. Looks like it's been bent in a bit, so she's copped a bit of hit on the tuner at some stage. Should come up in fairly good condition. Oh, surprised how heavy it is for a little set, but of course it is valve. So that's the back of it. I don't know if I've got a model number on this. Gainsborough. Manufactured by Radio Corporation, Division of Electronic Industries. It's an Astor, that's the difference. I think Astor got taken over by Philips in the end. That controls a little damage, and so is that one. That's the antenna, but I don't see a model number anywhere. The other little bonus with this is it's got a Teddy label from old Jim Lawler. That's his phone number back in the day. And I actually rang Jim when I was an apprentice, and joined Teddy, which is the Electronic Technicians Institute of Australia. And they were handy for sending out a little newsletter. Jim used to edit it. I think he was the secretary for the Tasmanian branch. And they had some fault lists and bits and pieces which were kind of useful, and a bit of industry news and stuff. And we went out on various sightseeing tours and stuff to a few things like the Astor installation. What else did we go and see? I can't remember what else we actually went and looked at. We'd had a conference thing for satellite television when that came out. With can't think what they're called, from the mainland, came down and showed us how to set that up. And a couple other places we went and looked at things. And Jim ended up, he was helping out at the Sound Preservation Society. When he retired, he was pretty much retired most of the time I knew him, but he did get in and fix quite a bit of stuff, and a lot of people probably would have heard of him if anyone's a reader of Electronics Australia magazine when it was around. And Jim was originally, I think there was someone else doing the serviceman column in there, but you often hear of JL from Tasmania sending stories in, and then he took over the actual editing of the column. So he was the actual serviceman there for a while. So a lot of people would have read that. It was quite an entertaining column to read. Some of the weird faults people got and methods they used to track them down. I actually sent in a couple of stories that got published in there. I'll have to dig them out sometime and maybe chuck them on the channel here. Nothing overly exciting, but that's who Jim was. Unfortunately passed away a while back. I forget, it was a few years now. I did go over, I hadn't seen him for quite a few years. I had quite a bit to do with Jim. And he'd come and visit me over at he'd go around the various businesses, and he'd come round to my business and say hello. And we wheeled and dealed on a few bits and pieces and helped him with a few things and whatever. And I did go over, I had bought a chainsaw off a guy on eBay, I think it was. And he was just up the road from Jim, so I dropped in and saw him. But that would have been, I don't know how many years ago, quite a few. Probably could be 8 years ago or something. And he was on a mobility scooter and stuff, but he still had his sense of humour and things. But he was getting very old then, and yeah, he did pass away more recently, which was a shame to hear. But he was certainly a sort of very active member in the local repair scene, and he was doing these sort of things a long time before I was, probably even before I was born. And he used to do photography and stuff for some of the newspapers and stuff, I think. So he's quite a good photographer, well into that sort of technology, and his sons both ended up in technology, though not repairing these things, which is a good thing because the industry didn't last too much longer. But one of them was doing computer programming and stuff, and supposedly one of the only people on earth that actually knew whatever language it was, which I can't remember. It was one of those things like COBOL or whatever they were, Fortran, one of those weird old things. I think in the early days of the internet he was quite an expert on the stuff. And his other son actually got into electronic music and was part of the band Boxcar, which was around in the early 90s and probably a bit later than that. I think I did look them up, and they may even still be doing the odd bits and pieces. But they were an electronic music band, and their first album I think was called Algorithm. So they were into like programming synths and all that sort of thing. So he had, they had a bit of success doing that, got a bit of airplay and sold a few records and stuff. I think there were some really good mixes of some of their tracks out there back in the early 90s. Triple J and that were playing them. So yes, really good to see one of those old stickers again. I completely forgot they existed. I did have one of the round, like a gold sort of round teddy label, probably 100mm diameter, I used to display at my business, but no idea what happened to that in the end. It was stuck to a glass window thing, and I'm not sure whether I ever salvaged that. I might still have it somewhere with a bit of luck. But that was a thing. It was Australia wide, and TESA, I think, were the other one. TESA, Electronic Service Association or something. And I think they were more aimed at like retailers and stuff. But they did have like a server side as well. I have seen some of their little newsletters and stuff they put out, a bit more professional than our ones. And yeah, Jim used to do them up on the old BBC Model B, which I think he got because his sons were into that sort of thing. And I did give him a few Model Bs I scored from somewhere at some stage. I got from some pile of junk somewhere. But he was right into the BBC Model B computers as well from memory, and he used to do up his little newsletters on those. Unfortunately, I threw all mine out years and years ago, along with most of my Electronics Australia magazines, but you can get Electronics Australia online, even though I think they banned it from one amateur radio site that had them. But I think archive.org, you may be able to find copies of them there, not the highest resolution scans, but at least they're there to find some information in. So that's old Jim, and yeah, I haven't completely forgot about him. And these stickers, he used to see his stickers on quite a few things. I think a couple of the other members use these stickers on equipment, but it looks like Jim was around in the valve days doing valve equipment. I guess we should probably take a look inside this thing and see what it's like, and make sure everything looks like it's relatively intact. That screws, the original's been lost, and we've got a little wood screw in there. But I think this will be screwed into a metal chassis. They're quite a long screw by the look of it, but it did the job. And yeah, supposedly, according to this, there is an Astor page I think on Facebook somewhere, and according to the guy on there, they actually were designing an Australian design colour TV just before Philips took them over, and I think Philips canned it. Obviously they had their own stuff, and Philips, I think, were Philips involved in Pi back then? I'm not sure if they actually were then, but they had the Chrysler brand as well, which was an old Australian brand, and Philips basically made colour televisions which were 90% the same as a Philips television, used all their parts, and was very similar in design, though it was an actual uniquely Australian television. Now, let's see, does a plug does just squeeze out. That feels like an aluminium back. And we did have a couple of inbuilt antennas, but we've only got the base of those left. They're like the little ones that pivoted sideways. I used to have heaps of those, and I threw them all away, but or sold them for scrap metal probably, because they're made out of brass mostly. But I think the old Sanyo, the early colour Sanyos use those. And we've got another Anodian picture tube here, which is interesting. Made in Australia. So that's the second Anodian I've seen lately. Something to do with the width. I wonder if that's that little thing there to set the width. It's quite dusty, of course. Got the little Arts and P or whatever label in there. Don't think there's anything for a date. Inspection number 47. Oh, it's a P11P. Oh, B11. Is it a P or a B? Of course, they've done it right on the hole, but it does have some green. Maybe it's an R. Anyway, 11P-7. That's probably the chassis number or something. And we've got some Philips mini watt valves. I think most of them are mini watts by the look of it, so maybe Philips are already involved, or they were buying parts off Philips. Not a Philips tube though. And that's our horizontal output in there, not surprisingly, but I think we'll just plug this in and see if it does anything. So rather than fiddling around with a dim bulb that just, yeah, it tends to make you think there might be something wrong, even if there isn't. I think we'll plug it in I might do it over here. Where's the... That's the on button. Well, I don't know if that's doing anything. That's the problem with these things. I'll keep my finger on the power switch on the power point. I think I can hear something. Oh, is that a bit of hash coming up? Or just something humming? Oh, something made a little... Oh, something's coming to life. Oh, we got smoke, I think. Oh yeah. Well, if it did work before, it doesn't anymore. So maybe this is a dim bulb one. Let's just hope it's not our transformer. Smells kind of resistor to me. Oh, let's put this in series. Quite bright. Dimming down. This is quite a high wattage globe, so it lets a bit of current through. The amp seems to be... So maybe whatever cooked up has finished cooking up. Maybe we'll let all the smoke out of it. It's not the amp's running, but there's no hash. Maybe something in the power went. Ooh. Don't think the horizontal's running. I did for a second thought I heard something, but can't tell. It almost sounds like we've got some faint horizontal. I think I might just do clean the dust off that so I can at least see. I don't think that's warm. I think we've got valve filaments possibly. Normally you at least get an orange glow. I think that one's glowing. Oh yeah, this one's glowing up the top here. Picture tube is, there's a little glow on the end there. Don't think anything's collapsing down. As far as picture or anything, like the tube's lit up at all. How do we get this chassis out of this thing? Screws underneath. Something's a bit loose in there, I think. Yeah, hard to say what this... It is plywood. I can see it's plywood through the vent holes. And nicely... I don't know if it's actually curved the timber. I guess not. It must be jointed in some way in the corners, I think. Hard to see what they've done. Not the things that I have to undo the, well, it's in the tuner and everything. I think we might have to undo these bits. Something's trying to do something. Oh god, is that solid metal? I think that's a solid metal knob. Oh, so's that. Listen to it. Wow, you forget how much die-cast metal and stuff they used in these things, but yeah, they were pretty solid. Should that just... feels loose-ish. That corner is solid. Ah, is it the rubber bloody feet? Of course it is. It'll be something like that. Sneaky buggers. What's the bit they don't just hold the feet on, but hold the chassis in place? Well, given their length, they'd have to. There's no way that isn't hitting the chassis. So is that enough, or do we need to... I think that might be it. Do we have to take the front ones out as well? No, this is something's happening. What the hell hit the floor? Something just dropped out of it. Oh, that's quite nice to work on. So got a rectifier there, better unplug the tube before I snap it off. And the yoke, hopefully enough wire to do what we need to do. I mainly want to have a quick look and see, is there any obvious location where the smoke came from? Oh god, the transformer doesn't look the greatest in this thing, but hopefully that isn't cooked. Let's bypass the lamp. Transformer's definitely humming a lot more. So could it be the transformer cooking? I couldn't feel any heat on it before. Usually if a transformer's going to smoke, it's going to be very hot by the time it does. Ooh, I can feel, oh, it's just heat from the valves. You always forgets in a solid state TV, if you feel a bit of hot air coming up, it's a bad sign, but in a valve TV it's just a valve doing a valve things. I think the vertical's running. There's a good buzzing sound there. No hash from the tuner. Oh, do I see smoke again? Oh, yep, it's coming. Where? Can't actually smell it this time. I must have gotten immune to it. Oh, I just thought it was that pot. Ooh. I think it is that pot. Don't think that. Oh yeah, that's a stinking hot one, I think. Did smell like resistor. I think that's our hot bit. So what's that pot do? It is contrast. What? We've got a stinking hot pot on the contrast control. God, that pretty much goes to the tube, don't it, with the tube shot. But we've got no horizontal, we've got no sign of IF or anything. So what if we leave the tube disconnected maybe? Because that contrast thing, don't know, we can try it. No guarantee of anything, but well, at least we know it's getting hot. I probably should treat it as high voltage, but can I hold that? That's alright. Not getting warm. Oh, now it's starting to. So the disconnecting the tube made no difference. Oh, yeah, that's getting untouchable. Oh, I just wiped the coating off it. Handy. Probably burnt and stuck to my finger. Okay, so that's an interesting fault. Can't say I've ever had a resistor in a contrast control type circuit cook up, but whether that feeds out of this to something else. But we haven't got RF, so there's two things related here possibly. Well, the video detector, the sound IF should come off before that. So I would have thought this tuner should be giving us some nice hashy sounds out of the audio. Unless the actual audio, well, the audio stage sounds like it's functional. Because we've got scratchy pot noises. No side of the pot seems to be short of the ground or anything crazy. Then that goes into this wire, which comes across here, and this is the other hassle of these things, point-to-point wiring. Yeah, it's that wire going over here somewhere. I guess we could do some voltage checks. Here comes, get out of the way, wire. over here. Which one is it? Is it red or is it orange? It's that red wire there, I think. Oh god, it goes all the way to the main filter cap by the look of it. Yep. Let's have a look what voltage we got there. 200 volts. And it's coming down a bit. I think it was about 218 before. And 120 dropping on the other side of that big time. So that resistor's dropping, unless this is going down. That's 297. We're dropping. So whatever's on the side is at a valve or something. Well, as the valve gets going, depending on what that resistor value is, that might be normal for it to drop that much voltage. Interesting, that's making a noise out of the speaker. Or alternatively, it could be dropping too much voltage. Yeah, 200 across that cap, so that yellow cap's probably fine. We don't know if this filter cap's particularly good. Ooh, yow, that's getting hot. So part of it comes down to some sort of IF thing there. The other bit we've disconnected just goes straight to the tube. So does that feed? I guess quite likely this is some sort of feed into the video out tube, which could be this thing here. Just going by its proximity to that area. So let's pull that out and see what happens, I guess. Do we get voltage drop across that resistor now? No, we've got 100. Oh, it's going down slowly. 189 volts. Where are we? 188. The other side is 201. So that's the thing pulling the current. We still don't have any hash out of the speaker or anything. But that should stop that resistor getting hot because it's not dropping voltage. What is this thing? A 6Y9 or something. Always good to give them a rattle test just for the hell of it. So it could be voltage that's feeding into that, a dodgy. I guess the other thing is, do we have any anode voltage? Where's the earth for the tube in this thing? It doesn't seem to have one. That probably ain't bloody helping. Oh, it's across there. Oh, that's a bit dodgy. Okay, something I just noticed is when you slide this chassis forward, we disconnect the earth's side of the tube from the chassis, so that's a pretty iffy design. Would have been nice if they said something. I better hook that back together. I never like running tubes with the Aquadag unearthed because you tend to get all sorts of sparks and things carrying on if you're not careful. Probably doesn't matter with this valve stuff so much, but well, it makes sense from a manufacturing point of view, but not from a servicing one so much. And can I get under that older cap? Oh, yeah. Am I far enough under it is the next question. These bloody things. Here's where I'll give myself a boot if I'm not careful. Let's see, I don't see anything rising yet, but it is valve, so we've got to wait for things to go, but I'm pretty sure there's no horizontal function. I would have thought we'd see something rising up by now. So no EHT, so it didn't matter that we had our earth disconnected. Yep, dead as. So I'm pretty sure the horizontal isn't running, IF isn't running, or tuner, because we're not getting any noise out of that, out of the amplifier. Dare I stick my hand in there? Not really. But that's a new one on me, is that you earth the tube that way. Don't even know what's safe to touch in these. Normally you just inject a bit of hum into it, but of course these are all high voltage, so you can't just stick your finger on the pot or something and see if that works. Maybe I can put that other valve back in. Do I hear hash? We're going to have our hot resistor again. Is that more than we had before? I think it is. I don't think we had any hash before. Not much, it should be a lot louder, but... So I think I'll go and look at the circuit of this thing rather than just mess around chasing things that probably aren't going to be the problem. I'll go from there. And this is our 6Y9. You've basically got the cathode of the tube comes into the contrast control. I assume that's our resistor. I think it's a 3.3K, the one here getting very hot. On one side of that contrast control, there should be a capacitor across there somewhere. And another resistor to ground. One to the... Actually, that's the high voltage there, isn't it? So maybe, well, there's two of them. So it looks like we've got a high voltage... Well, that's interesting. Didn't notice that before, but I think this big black line is our, yeah, it should be 185 volts, probably a bit higher now. It was up around the 200 because we've got no horizontal running seemingly. And that seems to be a completely separate thing. Interesting, that valve, half of it's also used here for the audio, basically detector, I guess, or the like, which actually comes out of the video side of that, almost on the, well, the anode of that other half of the same valve, the 6Y9, which is on the other side of that contrast pot where it's getting hot. So it could be either of these. I didn't actually measure the resistance that, did I? And the values all come off now, so it's either a 3K3 or a 22K, but it certainly looks like that valve could be faulty. Let's have a look. That's the 3K3 side. So it looks like from the same point we should have 22K. I was measuring more like 8, but that could be this control setting. Still reading 8. And barely changes. So is this pot even working? Who knows? What value was the pot? I didn't take much notice. Looks like the 8K across there, so that is across. Oh yeah, it was either side of the pots that thing went to. If I stop slipping off this, cannot get it to attach. It's surprisingly slippery. Oh yeah, now it's gone down to 0 and up to 8K, so I think that pot's probably a worker, and it should do the opposite direction wise on the other end. High. Went open circuit almost. Yeah, it does go open circuit at one end, well that's not a good sign, is it? Down to 1.8. So that pot is not the greatest. I don't think that's going to be causing any grief with the cooking of resistors and things, but it probably doesn't help. Let's just give it a clean. Of course, facing upwards, so plenty of dust would have fallen down inside there over the years. It's worth checking all these things because it's not impossible something here could be faulty, causing issues. Yeah, now we're down to 2.6 ohms at that end, 8K at the other, 3.6 and 8K. But anyway, I don't think it's anything to do with our main issue. There were a couple of caps and stuff which I'd say are unlikely to be the problem. Even the one that connects the anode of that valve to the other half of that valve on one of the grids, that's the audio takeoff. It seems to come from the video. I think that was that the video detector, or that's the sync separator. Comes through some IF can type thing. What does that say? I can't read half of this now. Probably should have made the contrast a lot darker too before I printed it, but I just went straight from the file. I found this, so that's right, this is the Radio Museum. It is actually in the JR manuals as well, but it's an Astor Royal R11 P7, which was this thing, so it is an R11 P7 there. So Astor Series 7 circuit. This is the one for this particular little 11-inch version. So where do we get to? Yeah, is there possibly a short cap? Whether I can even find half these things. That's that inductor there feeding down. I guess I should check the cap there. Pretty unlikely any of this stuff's shorted, but oh, is that across the? That's probably got the inductor across it, has it? Yeah, that one's across the inductor, so at least you know the inductor's good. And then off the other side should be another cap that goes off to another part of that same valve. And this is the problem. How do you? I guess we could just randomly check the caps around it for shorts. Got a little polystyrene. There's that guy there. That's a resistor, I think. That's a different inductor. It's starting to look a lot like that valve. That 6Y9 thing is dead. Looks like that's going. I might have to spend another $15 getting another valve off eBay and see if that fixes it. We've only got the other side. But really it's a leakage, if that's even, well, we don't know exactly what's going on. Then the other thing is there's a 22k resistor, 100k resistor. They're unlikely to have gone low value. They go to the sink separator, and whatever this other valve is, pretty unlikely to be anything there. It's most like that valve is possibly pulling too much power. So it's looking an awful lot like that shot, so I could probably pull that one out for now. And that does feed into the audio, so maybe that's why we haven't got a lot of audio as well. So that could explain two faults in one valve, even though I think that audio half is actually fed differently. But I guess if this part isn't working here, because that comes off that output side, which is literally the part that's being pulled down to ground or whatever through that 3.3k resistor, the one getting extremely hot, so maybe that voltage is too low. No voltage is given here, which doesn't help. They do give some pinouts of different things here. Oh, maybe these are the valves. Maybe they do. Oh, they do. Oh, that could be handy. This is V1, is it? I guess we can check around that socket. So they do give a little valve voltage diagram. That's nice, because especially when you're someone like me who has no idea what they're actually working on, it's always nice if you've got some voltages just to give you an idea, because you can quickly pinpoint faults that way. Yes, that's 200 volts. That must be the one coming in. Yeah, that was that blue wire which came on the other side of that inductor. So what does it actually say should be on that? Is that pin 10? I think that is pin 10. It's very hard to read. So it should be around 115 volts. We were going down to a bit lower, I think 70 volts or something, wasn't it? Or was it? Oh, maybe it was that high. I better check. 188, that should be another high voltage. 169. Nothing. Should actually be 1 volt or something, but without a valve in there. That's that capacitor. 0.62 volts, because that goes to ground via a resistor. Nothing. It's not even connected. Not even connected. Then we should have 50 volts. They're probably just using those as wiring points or something. Ooh. So that's our audio something. Ooh, that's quite high. I haven't checked that cap, I don't think. But if it's high voltage on it, it's not going to be shorted if that goes to ground, but does it go to ground? Well, it's low voltage on one side, high on the other, so it's either open circuit or fine. I think that was meant to be 50 volts, and there's a couple of pins left. Or more. Nothing. Nothing. One should have -2 volts on it. One should be 50 odd volts. I might plug that back in. Okay, let's put it in there and measure some voltages. And what did our voltage go down to here? It's, yeah, we're going right down to 86 odd volts, which is this pin. 80 volts. Still 159 after it. Yeah, 150 volts is roughly correct. Ooh. What's going on there? Someone's making some weird noises. 0. That should be ground. It's about 1.5. So that third one around. Something interesting going on there. Makes me think that's faulty. We've got nothing. Nothing. 50 volts is now there. And another 50.4. That was meant to be -2, I think, so it just shows, oh yeah, 250s. That's the input pin, which is probably why it's making funny noises. So that's the grid. Is that open circuit? Doubt it. No, 120 ohms, certainly a bit high, but these are like 20% tolerance, I think. Silver band. What was that, 10%? Either way, it's not far off. That's interesting. So that's making it sound like... So besides that main voltage being low, should be around 110 volts, 115, something like that. But it's dropping all the way down to 90 odd, isn't it? So that's another 25 volts across that resistor. I mean, is that a faulty valve? Is it pulling too much current? That would be the most likely guess, I guess. So that's one issue. So I think I might just have to buy another one so I can eliminate that out of my... What I'm worried about might be causing the problem. But most likely that's going to be shot, I think. And then we've got this... I think that's that valve was getting quite hot behind the metal cover there in the horizontal. That's your diode, boost diode. Again, coming off our 200 odd volt, whatever it's meant to be, 185 I think. Down through a winding. I've seen that winding is joined to that winding. I think these are all one winding of the transformer into the anode of our 675 horizontal output. And we've got another voltage directly into one of the grids. And then the signal here, that must be some sort of horizontal oscillator, I guess, or horizontal osc, you can see it says there. And that goes back, yeah, this is the sync separator valve output, goes into both horizontal, looks like a couple of diodes to do a bit of discrimination or something. I forget exactly how all this works now, and that's the vertical signal goes off in there. I can basically separate the two out. So it would go up through here, that's the grid. So we really need to find out if we've got any activity here, or if, even if we've got anything coming out of this sync separator, I guess. That cap could be open or something shorted here. Guess we better check this boost voltage. Is that V9? V10, V9. That's simply got 129. It looks like 15. So it really doesn't do much, it's just a diode. Would that be 15? That seems a bit odd. So they only give us a couple, maybe that one's V9 and that's V8, just says 170 volts. You're probably not meant to measure too much more than that. Generally they don't like you fiddling around on the anode of the horizontal output. but we may, if this isn't running, then we're probably safe to measure a couple of things there. I don't know if it's worth for the TV or your multimeter if you go poking on that, but I have touched things like that I think in the past, and the old fluke just goes off and you turn it off and on again and away it goes again. So I might have to take a risk and just measure that. See if we've got the voltages. I better take that valve back out, I think. Especially before this thing even gets going, I guess I can... 3 volts, well that isn't very good. And 1 volt on this thing. Now is that because it hasn't fired up? Well, we should be getting B+, hang on. Oh, of course it won't go through the diode part, but I think it comes via a resistor. Don't know which pin that goes to, but this line output, now it's got to go through the diode and an inductor somewhere there. Must be under the board. Oh well, let's fire it up again, see, let it get going. And see what happens. So I think it's just that valve, this thing, this 6Y9 thing is just, it's acting like it's pulling too much power or something. Which of course is possible, but I'm not an expert on failure modes of valves. There's no voltage on the top pin on that one, and same with that one. But I don't see how we could lose voltage. I've got to find that inductor feeding in. And that is getting warm, isn't it? Oh yeah, very warm. But whether it's actually the emissions working out of it, that's putting the voltage out. I'm gonna have to flip the, it's probably that great big inductor there, is it, or is that an adjustment? That's the diode valve there. It's got a resistor. Should have an inductor feeding into it somewhere. That looks like ground, so that's the other side of the heater, I guess. So one of these pins must get voltage. Or maybe, yeah, maybe it's through that resistor. Is that actually intact? Seems to be. Let's see if that's where our B+ is coming from. I'm guessing it will be. 221 volts there. So yeah, so that's the input to the valve, to the diode. Don't think anything's coming out the other side of it though. Fluke's not happy with that. So maybe that booster is working. So maybe we do have a higher voltage coming out there. That should go then into the, I think the anode cap is that cap on that other valve. And then we got, not sure, nothing, minus 30 volts. That might be the one that's labelled minus 15. Should have 129 next to it. That's what I thought. Very weird. Then what? Possibly just a heater or something. Three volts. Nothing and nothing. It's almost like the horizontal's possibly running. And the silverfish have eaten speaker cone again. But it's certainly not active. I can't hear the horizontal, and we weren't getting any EHT out of it. I mean, the fact that booster diode's running quite warm could just be the heater, but you would think that would mean it's feeding in. Got some high voltage cap there that then goes off to the rectifier diode. That's cooled down quite well now. That horizontal is very, very hot. Well, so is that though. Whew, that is a burner, that one. So that's... And then our diode seems to have cooled right down. Is that diode even working? I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining things. Yeah, no, that's looking... that ain't gonna work. It's bloody gassed. I'm pretty sure that's gassed. There's all weird black stuff in there now. I think that valve's shot. Don't know, maybe that's just the getter or something, but that looks... I can see a crack in that, can I? Is that my imagination? I think it's cracked down the bottom there. So that would explain our dud horizontal. Yeah, it's cracked across the base. Goes to show you can visually find things with these things. Definitely a crack across the pins there, like it's been hit, so that's dead. Now, do I have something similar? Well, the beaten up old rotten Philips TV I got actually has one. I can just read it. I thought I'd pulled the valve out, and then I looked and there was another one in there, and sure enough it's the correct type, so you can get lucky. That TV has proven itself well worth saving, even though it's going a complete wreck. So a lot of these parts were interchangeable by the look of it. Now, in case we do get EHT up, I'm definitely want that earthed, the tube earthed. Maybe we'll put our lamp back in series. Not much action, I don't think. Ooh, here it comes, I think. Ooh, vertical's making noises. Now we've got some proper action. Not seen a raster yet, but I thought the vertical was making a noise before, but now it's really buzzing. Yeah, I can hear definite horizontal. Still can't see anything, but we're probably going to have no picture without that other valve, so I might pop our other valve in, so that thing's definitely shot. That can go in the rubbish. Can hear the vertical starting up. Sounds like we've lost hold. It's quite probably why it's so noisy. Oh, yeah, we've got some audio coming. We've got a raster. I can see it reflecting off there. A very bright one, but that's neither here nor there. And it's still down to 77 volts, so is that still going to get super hot? Possibly. But this thing's now a go, so somewhere along the line that valve must have got broken, because this was meant to be a working TV. Ooh yeah, it's still getting stinking hot. But I'm a lot happier with that. That's a much better result. So that's the video out or whatever, so that could be the reason. I'll turn the brightness down. I think the raster's disappeared a bit. Oh yeah, no, that's just the brightness setting. It still looks washed out. It's not proper snow. Audio seems awfully low too. So that valve's still looking like it's cactus. I'm probably going to start smoking in a second. I was going to check the contrast. Oh, it's doing something. And we have a blank, basically like a black or white, depending where you set the brightness screen. But hopefully that'll come up on the camera. But we just got a blank raster. That thing's going to be getting very hot, I think. Well, that's a lot more action than we had before, so that's a good thing. I think I'll order another one of those valves. Oh yeah, stinking hot. So So it was getting on the verge of smoking again, I think. Well, that makes me a lot happier. We know the tube's pretty good in this thing. We've got all our EHT horizontal running. I might even take this out and give it a good dust out. And I think I'll order one of those 6Y9 things or whatever they are, and see if that fixes the video issue and the sound issue and the smoke and resistor issue. But I think the voltage has actually even dropped on that since we got the horizontal going, which maybe it's dropped along with the B plus going down a bit. Okay, I've got another valve turn up, one of these, what was it, 6Y9 / EFL 200. That's weird, it's an AWV, like AWA valves, but made in Japan. What's the old one? Is that a mini watt or something? I think it was a mini watt that got the label wiped off when I touched it. Well, it looks like the same thing. And someone, eBay seller, gave me a little note. Thanks for the eBay support. It's great to see you and I are still in the tube electronics. You have a great day in Tasmania. From Helen. Helen, there you go. King's something, I forget what the seller was, and a little smiley face. Oh well, always nice to get a little message. But will I have a smiley face shortly because this fixed it? I have no idea whether I can expect this to do the job or not. Where was it? In there somewhere. But in theory I should be able to just plug this in and it should at least just give us a blank raster again like it did before. Oh yeah, it was that resistor getting hot, wasn't it? That was the... I guess I should get a multimeter and check the voltage on that, whether we get the same sort of voltage drop. I can hear a bit of hum out of the speaker. It's going back down to 70 volts, so that's a bit of a bummer. 60 volts. I don't think we've done a damn thing. I can hear vertical coming out of the audio now, I think. But no hash. Ooh, definitely hear vertical coming out of the speaker now. We didn't have that before. We've got a raster. And I think it's exactly the same as before, besides a bit of vertical in the... Well, it probably wasn't the valve after all. I can smell that resistor cooking again. And it's none the difference, and I couldn't find anything around that that was faulty, but we've still got the same low voltage. Hot resistor, no change at all, so my diagnostic skills are definitely not much good on valves. I think all the pins around there measured about right. God, you can never, you've got to hold your finger on long enough for it to burn, or you can't feel like, yeah, no, that's very hot still. As I suspected, you can smell it. Oh well, looks like it's back to square one, but at least I know that valve is not the issue. Interesting, the audio does seem to do a little bit more under this one than the sound of that, but it's still just, for some reason we get more vertical noise in the audio amp itself. Maybe that, I don't remember hearing it last time, but maybe it was there. And yeah, I might print out a better copy so I can see what the actual voltages are meant to be again. Maybe we need to get the oscilloscope and double check the waveform going into it, because for all I know, maybe it's being driven wrong or something. So whatever comes out of that 6x9 thing, and this, God knows what we've got here. We've got a diode in there. Some sort of IF type can thing. It's the only other possibility, I guess, is maybe we've got some sort of weird waveform. So I don't really know how these valves behave under different conditions. I think the voltages of what I could read of them were around about correct, but maybe what's coming in on the grid is wrong. Could the grid be allowing too much current to flow anode to cathode, maybe? Okay, got a much better circuit, just chopped out the bit I want. Now I can actually read it. It's even got all the valve heater pinouts there, so they must put them on a separate part of the circuit. One even goes for an inductor here. which is V4. That's our actual 6X9, which is the next part I'm going to maybe have a look around. It does give a couple of waveforms at least. And now I can actually read the voltage diagram of what's what on that particular one. I'm just going to be careful with the tube wiring here. But we should be able to... Oh, and we got to watch the disconnection of the tube ground. So it's V1 there. Pin 9, pin 10 was the main voltage in, I think. Gotta find it on the circuit now. And then 9, oh, that's high tension 2, which I don't think is on this circuit. That should be 150 volts, was it? So I guess let's see if that one's being pulled down. I can't remember what was there last time, but I think it was there. And we've got a couple of negative. That's 7 and 8. Yeah, that 8, the one that comes in from the other previous valve stage, so it's transformer isolated. That might be worth a look. So 10 is one end. We just got to find which end. I still haven't worked out, or still haven't memorised what is what on these things. So that was the gap in the valve there, I think. So one's got a little cap on it, nothing. That's the one with our main B plus that cooks the resistor. The one next to it is slowly coming down as the valves warm up. That should be 150. That was the one that was making the funny noise. Nothing. And 1.6. So that should be 0.6. That should have some sort of voltage on that. So is that the missing part? It's pin 8, 0, 150, so that's pretty spot on. That's the one that's going too low, 60 volts. Turn it off for a second. So that was 1.6 on 7. 7 is what, our audio stage or something? No, where is 7? 10, 9, 8, or 7. Yes, that's the one that goes to ground. That's high. I guess we should check. That should be a 33 ohm to ground and 35 ohms to ground. I think that was the one that was high, and this pin, that's the one that was making that buzzing sound through the audio, like I was injecting some sort of signal. So maybe that is still, that's pin 9, isn't it? No, wait, pin 9 is 150. Pin 8 is our input. Should be 100 ohm resistor, which would be that one there. So is that a brown, black brown? Must be. Can't tell the brown from the orange. 120 ohm, little high. I think we came across that one before, the more I think about it. What have we got here? These look like resistors with inductors wrapped around them or something. 5.6 and 10 ohm. It should be a 15k, a 1 meg. So the ground from that 100 ohm resistor should be a 1 meg plus a 3.9k. Well, the 1 meg's actually got an inductor across it, so it should be 3.9k, I guess. Ah, that's this pin. 100 ohms isn't going to matter. That's 1k to ground. 3.9k, a 1 meg. Unless we've got a leaky cap here, or it can go through an inductor. We've got a diode and another cap, so there's possibly 2 caps could be dodgy, or 1 diode could be dodgy. Is that this little box here? Oh, wait, it goes up to this little box here, doesn't it? That would be more likely it, I guess. So it could have a leaky germanium diode or something, I don't know. Yeah, that's our 100 ohm. That is a, well, it was measuring low, wasn't it? If that goes to the inductor thing, where are we on the circuit? Down here. So 6Y9 that I replaced, 100 ohm resistor, It's got a 1 meg with an inductor across it, so it's basically a short circuit. 3.9k to ground. Also goes up through another inductor, so basically a short circuit. And a 15k. I wonder, that's probably that combo thing I was just measuring. Combo resistor. Oh, that's the other combo resistor thing. Yeah, gotcha. So I guess the resistor is probably for the DC and the inductor more for the AC or something. So we've got a resistor with an inductor wound on it, resistor with an inductor wound on it. One goes to ground, but we could be getting a bypass across that because we go through an inductor, which is, as far as DC, just a short. Another inductor is a short, but that's got a capacitor. Well, there is a diode to ground. So if I measure it the other way around, there's also a cap across that inductor. Well, that's not going to matter on the DC side. So you could have a leaky path through that. It could just be the diode I'm measuring to ground, but either way they're kind of bypassing that 3.9k. So that was from this here, this one here. Let's measure it. Yeah, one way's open circuit, I think. And the other way, let's put it on BP diode test. We've got a 0.3, which is a diode. Yeah, positive on that side. Yeah, didn't swap the leads, did I? There's something across there. Well, let's measure that. That should be our 3.9k the other way, I think. Now we're getting all this fluke doing weird things stuff. That's really annoying when they do that. Why are you pulsing, you stupid meter? Should only do that if there's a weird voltage or something there. Oh, something just flashed up. Come on, fluke. Oh, there it is, the 3.2k. Oh, what the hell, am I not making a good contact there or something? Yeah, so we've got 3.2k, a diode across the other way. That all measures fine in that sense. No voltage there though. What generates the voltage? The transformer into the diode, I guess. Yeah, that's a negative voltage. Diode goes backwards relative to ground. So it could be the previous stage is dead, or the diode detector's not working. Sure, that wouldn't make a resistor cook up in this circuit because the previous... I was starting to wonder if that 6X9 valve could have an issue or around that area. So if there's no signal going into that transformer, there's certainly none going to be coming back out. But DC wise, as a quick test, I'd say that circuit's fine. So I think we might check the voltage on V4. First I've got to find where it actually is. Is that on this end board, I guess? 6DX8. It's one of these two up in here. Actually, is there a valve? I don't think we've got a diagram to show us where the valves are, which is a pain. Yeah, well actually this is on the other side of that. If that transformer's the one on the circuit, which it must be, this will be it. 6X9. So that's this socket here. Yeah, like I say, I should check. Guess I should check it actually lights up for starters, which I'm sure it will. There's minus a slight amount now, but not minus 12. Both of those, oh, it should be 102, 130, 130. Oh, that was the other one, that's not even connected. It's got 66. 130. 140. Nothing. All the way around to pin 2 should be 1.8 or something, which is that one. Yeah, 1.8, so we've got good voltage going into it. Okay, so last time I looked at this thing, I basically came to the conclusion that these three valves sort of come out of the IF of the tuner basically. And we've got, yeah, first IF amp, second IF amp, I think that's like the video detector or whatever. Then we've got our output audio and video output. The one that was the 6Y9, the one I replaced, thinking it might be drawing too much current, and that was making that resistor up there hot, or was it the one of those resistors anyway. And I basically measured the voltage on these others and basically came to the conclusion it looked like there was no grid voltage, no negative voltage on the grids, and the voltage on the anodes was low and obviously pulling too much current here. So I basically came to the conclusion that most likely we have no signal going through here, and that's the actual cause of why the valves are actually drawing more current than they should, because obviously if the voltages are dropped there must be more current flowing than there should be. And somewhere in the back of my brain it started remembering how these valves actually work, and I actually end up looking up online just to confirm it. But of course these things, basically once you apply a heater to the cathode, which is basically designed to excite the electrons in there and get them ready to fly through space, and if you've got a decent voltage like this does, up around 150 to 200 volts on the anode, even with nothing else going on, once that cathode heats up you're going to just get an unabated current flow basically, other than what resistors or whatever in the circuit limit that. But basically the valve, unlike I'm thinking in terms of transistors still, where if you don't put a voltage in on the base, generally you don't get any collector emitter current flow. The thing just turns off, unless you've got some sort of bias on it or something to set it in a certain range. Like in some amplifiers they basically have the quiescent current because they're running all the time in a certain zone, and that's what they're designed to do. But normally, yeah, it just turns off, and I'm sort of thinking of this like a transistor, but in these the actual grid is the controlling device, so it's like a base on a transistor, but you've actually got to turn it negative. If you put it, so the valve will just free flow electrons, whatever it can do with the voltage and resistance around it, it'll just flow happily right through there once it's heated up. And you actually need to put a negative voltage on these little grids, these little dotted lines, to actually abate that current, to control it. And in the case of like a circuit like this, you're using an AC signal to modulate the current. So that's how they work as an amplifier. You've got a large current flow cathode to anode, and then you can use a much smaller current or voltage variation to control the grid. So a little signal can change a much bigger flow, which is why you get amplification. A little thing controlling a bigger thing, so that means the signal coming out of this is much bigger in current than the one going into it, and can vary voltage much more and all the rest. So I think what it is something in the tuner, or maybe I should have printed out the other part of this circuit, but whatever feeds into these stages probably isn't there. There are a couple of waveforms here, I might just check. There's also, even though it's cut off on this circuit, this 220 volt pulse coming here. It looks like a horizontal, just peak after peak, and it does come from the horizontal yoke, I think it was. So they're feeding, I think, a coupling cap, and they're feeding this big signal back, and it goes to the AGC line, which is the automatic gain control of the tuner. So if you get a strong signal, it amplifies it less type of thing, and if it's a weak signal, it cranks it up. And these resistors hanging out the end here, I don't know if I had them on in the other video, because I was sort of fiddling around and found it at some point, but there's a big 22 mega ohm resistor there that was open circuit. So I bypassed that with a bunch of whatever, I think 8.2 megs or something, or a combination of them and something else by the look of it, to get around 20 mega ohms back there. So whether that's related or not to that line, I don't know, but I think the reason we're getting no hash in the sound and nothing, no snow on the screen, or just a blank raster, is because maybe as far back as the tuner something's not working. I think this tuner gets 6.3 volts to run the two valve filaments, and I don't know, on the circuit here, and something like the 150 volt line or whatever is one of these HT rails, as they call them, HT2 I think it is. And I forget what the other one ran off. I think it's HT1. The resistor that's cooking up is going off HT1 into that video amplifier. And some of these other valves, and even that one by the look of it on one of the grids in it, is run off HT2. So like high tension, I think HT stands for high tension rail 1 and 2. So it could be that's missing on here. It could be something to do with the tuner. I don't know if I can just inject, usually just pull the IF connection, a little RCA plug here. I could even pull that out and see if that has any effect. But most tuners have an RCA out, which is the output to your IF. And you can always hook up another TV, video, whatever, with a tuner that's powered up and tuned into something on it, and put the signal into another TV or whatever. As long as you're not like connecting a live chassis up to a non-live chassis or something, you've got to be a little bit careful, but generally you can inject a signal. Often that's just the easiest way without any special test equipment, because it's so rare you ever had to do it. So we'll have a bit more of a poke around, see if this tuner's getting the voltages it needs. There should be one high voltage and one 6.3 volt, and I might get the oscilloscope out and have a look at Like we know we've got nothing there, probably got nothing there. I think that's about the first, out of the IF stage, that's the first signal it gives. And we can check that horizontal's feeding back in. Not sure how critical that is, but it does, I think, feed into, it goes back into this valve. There's a second half of this valve onto the anode or part of that. AGC rectifier it is. And then but the interesting thing is we've got contrast coming off that as well. So I'm not sure why the AGC's hooked to the contrast. And that again comes off where that 3.3k resistor is getting hot. There's another 100k down to the grid on that one. So it's all over the place, this circuit. I'm not exactly 100% sure what they're doing. But a lot of this valve gear, they did a lot with very little, and their circuit arrangements can be quite interesting to get things done using parts of different valves. And yeah, you find things like these contrast controls where you wouldn't expect them. So, well, that's a sub-contrast control, that one. The main one's over here, which not surprisingly goes to the actual cathode of the tube. That's what you'd expect. It's something to do with the video line. But this one, it says AGC rectifier, and then it's got a contrast preset on it. And then it looks like, it jumps over that. Yeah, I don't know where that other line went, I forget now. So I think we'll just have to poke around this tuner here and see if we've got our 6 volts. That could be the high voltage there. No. No. 140 volts. Okay, just click the tuner around a bit and we've actually got snow and snow on the screen and hash out of the speaker. I can still smell that resistor getting hot, I think. Oh yeah, she's cooking. So that kind of throws my theory out the door a bit. So the actual signal chain is working through there. And I guess that signal there, we're not really going to get anything until we put an actual video signal into this thing. Could be another possibility. So I really probably need to put a video signal in and see if these other valves have all still got wonky voltage. At least we know the chain is basically working. So I'm still none the wiser as to why that's getting hot. And maybe it'll get hot but not smoke, I don't know. Still seems way too hot. That's got the original valve back in it. So I might have wasted a bit of time messing around chasing a fault that wasn't there, but still that resistor seems to be getting hot. Doesn't really explain all those voltages being out if the thing actually runs. But I'll have to check those voltages again with a signal going into it. Oh, look at that, that was a big picture. But I guess it is valve technology for you. But yeah, that's working just as well as the other one. Still think that's not quite tuned in right, but maybe try it on channel 4. Ooh, so that's got some muck on it. Definitely some interference and stuff there. It's actually focused rather well. But yeah, I might let that run a little bit. It's got a good tube in it, that's for sure. And unfortunately I can't turn the sound down. But we do have a bit of lack of linearity in the horizontal, but that's not surprising. For an old TV, that's not bad geometry at all. It's still pretty hot, but I don't think it's as hot as it was getting. But there is no audio off this machine is the problem. But it's making a lot of buzzing noise. Let's see what the voltages are saying now, whether we've got those negative grid voltages or not. Maybe see what voltage is over dropping that resistor, because that was the main indicator that made me think the resistor was 200 or so. Once that's up to 190, but it should drop. Have we got Yeah, we've got test pattern, so at least it's got a video signal into it. 140 bloody volt bullshit. What in the... Yeah, 190 volts. Well, that resistor definitely isn't dropping anything like it was. It was down to 70 volts. So, that's the problem with working on things you're not familiar with, is you get some weird stuff. That turns out to be nothing. Minus 18, 139. That's the second valve, isn't it? We want the other one as well. 89. Minus 24, that was meant to be the minus 19. 89 instead of, what was it, 33 I think on that one? Yeah, it went right down to 33. 0 volt on the grid. All I did was flick the tuner and that was pretty much it. V1 it is. 115, 150. So it had minus 2 on pin 1. Which I think was that one. Nothing. Ooh, interesting. I wonder if that cap's faulty or something. 47 volts. Hang on, 47. That shuts that noise up nicely. 142 volts, that's the 150 volt. Yeah, that's the pin, I think. 166. No. I should be 115, 150. Quite a bit higher. 160. Minus 3. Should be minus 1.8. That should be minus something. Or no, it should be half a volt. Oh, yeah, it is. And then skip a couple, and then we get 50 volts and 50 volts. $50, $50, and then a gap. I think, was there a gap? And then minus 2.2. Well, minus a half a volt. Probably depends what signal's going in. That valve is making all that noise. That's squealing the audio, which isn't that bad. That's full volume, I think. Gone. So it's one of these caps open circuit or something. It's only when you touch the valve side. Could that be the valve? So there, that's dropping, what, 40 volts or something now. And all I did in the end, I think, was touch the tuner. That's just completely crazy. So I had a fault, but it's gone by tweaking the tuner. So maybe that's, yeah, maybe that tuner was in some weird mode that it just put no signal, and being a valve circuit, that was enough to throw all the valves into turning fully on. Utterly crazy, really. I've got to fix that resistors, so we'll tidy them up as well. Yeah, so that's all it was. That smoking resistor and those valves being all out of whack seems to have originated from the tuner, or lack of signal from the tuner, or something. Very weird. I might just disconnect this video signal too, see if that changes anything, but I can't imagine it needs a video signal to stop things smoking in it. Now let's check this voltage again. Should be about 140, I think we're up to now. 142 roughly. Get the probes the right way around would help, I guess. Oh, it's down to 62 on snow. What the? Well, I'll be... So this TV does not like running on snow, I think, is the problem. That's not a very good design, is it? It's still up to 184 there, but we're down to, yeah, down to 61 volts again. Hit the TV VTR button. That's a massive difference across that resistor. So that goes from yeah, it drops down to 60 volts out of 180, so there's 120 odd difference. That's just turning the TV VTR to get that test pattern on the screen, and it goes down to 50 volts, which is much more acceptable across a 3.3k resistor of that sort of, that's probably close to 5 watts, that thing might be a 3 watter. So it wasn't even the tuner, tweaking the tuner, it was just the fact, well, technically it was kind of that, but, so I don't think these TVs like to be run on the snow. That resistor's going to get a damn sight hotter if they do, unless there's something I'm missing here. So I was chasing a fault that, well, a fault that could be just a design fault if anything. I guess how long do people run a TV on snow normally, but what if you're watching this late at night when the TV station turned off? In the bedroom or something, which is the perfect place for a little portable TV, you would have got a cooked resistor. Guess that might have woke you up when things started smelling like smoke. So yeah, it just seems when the signal's not coming in these valves, we lose our grid voltage, and the electrons just start flowing flat out through the things, pulling down this voltage here, and particularly through this one valve through an inductor, through a 33 ohm to ground. So that 3.3k resistor is dropping 120 volts when there's no signal going into it. So that's rather crazy. So I was wasting my time even looking for that fault. Yeah, it's hard to keep it in the slot, and it doesn't seem to do anything when you do, so I think we'll give up on worrying about the horizontal linearity. Bit of picture movement there. And we've got a lot of buzz from the pattern generator again, and there seems to be a bit of a whining sound in there anyway, which when you put a multimeter across some of those capacitors on the audio valve disappears, but I don't think I'll bother chasing that at the moment, or probably ever. It's just nice to get this little thing running, and hopefully with no smoke coming out of it. But it led me on a bit of a wild goose chase, so I've got to, left that new valve in there, seemed to be a bit louder than the other one, so maybe it's a bit better. Got a spare valve out of it. And there you go. I learned a bit about valve technology from it. But who knew that you'd get crazy things like cooking resistors because of basically the mode we're in at the moment. No signal. I think the ghost of Jim Lawler must be haunting this TV, because that would have made a good story for the serviceman column in Electronics Australia back in the day. So yeah, chasing around after a fault that didn't even exist, all the logic involved and how you track it down and all that sort of thing, that was exactly what his columns were about. So I think Jim's haunting this TV and gave me a bit of a difficult one to play around with to make an interesting story, and well, it turned out to be in an actual story since I recorded this. So there you go. I think Jim's ghost and the ghost of the serviceman is alive and well in this thing, and he decided to throw me a bit of an oddball one just for old time's sake. Thanks for watching.